We are at the hour. It is now 10 o'clock, and I want to welcome everybody here to this eMarketeer Academy webinar on eMarketeer tips and tricks, things you didn't know you could do with eMarketeer maybe. Happy to welcome so many people. It's been a while since we've done this webinar, and I can see that this is certainly something that interests a lot of you guys because we are a lot of people today. So I'm super excited. I hope that that promises a good dialogue and good questions and challenges from you guys on the webinar today. My name is Klaus. I'm the CMO at eMarketeer and been doing these webinars for quite a while. So I can recognize a lot of names here on the participants lists. I'm thrilled to see so many familiar, I'm going to say faces, but names at least on the participants lists. And also in these crazy times with the COVID-19 virus keeping us from meeting face to face at the conferences and events and meetings that were supposed to have happened during this spring. So I'm thrilled that we can at least kind of meet in this setting, and we'll be pushing out a lot more webinars in the coming days and weeks here to kind of make up for the lack of face-to-face time that we normally have here during the spring. Just a few practicalities. We're going to be around 45 minutes on the webinar, plus some questions. So keep questions coming throughout the webinar. We're so many people, so you're going to be muted, but you can type questions for me throughout the webinar. I will do my best to pick up on the questions during the webinar and certainly do a sum up at the Q&A. Don't worry if I don't get to answer your questions live on air. I will make sure to get back on you on email after the webinar, so don't worry about that. Helena is saying there's no sound. I hope it's only Helena who's got a problem. Let me know if you can hear me okay. That would be super. The webinar will be recorded, so don't worry too much about where I click and how I do things. We'll be able to review the whole lot here. And the objective today is really to discover some new tricks that you may not have known about in eMarketeer, some of the lesser known features that are still pretty cool to know about. And there's a little freebie at the end for those of you who stick around. There's little something at the end of the webinar that I think you'll enjoy if you like analytics and performance measurements and stuff like that, and you run a website. So I guess that's pretty much all of you. But let's see how things go. Okay, a lot of good feedback. Thanks, guys, for letting me know that sound and visuals are coming through. That is awesome. So basically, we're going to cover a lot of stuff today. Is probably going to go fast because, you know, I'm a fast talker. So buckle up and take this as inspiration. Don't worry too much about where I click and how I do things. You can always go back to revisit. Just be, you know, open your senses for some inspiration to things that you could do with eMarketeer. That's basically all what we're about today. All right, so just 2 words or 2 seconds on eMarketeer. I guess all of you know us by now, but if you don't and you're wondering who the heck is this guy and why are we here, eMarketeer is a marketing automation platform. We were born in the cloud in 2002 as a marketing automation platform catering to both business to business and the business to consumer segments. In eMarketeer, you can do a lot of different things around your marketing projects, all the way from simple newsletters to advanced drip campaigns, event management, website tracking, mobile marketing, mobile apps building, and tons more. But that's another webinar. I think you're familiar with who we are, but I just wanted to get that out of the way. So let's dive right into the tips and tricks with eMarketeer. And I'm kind of bucketed them into different categories pretty broadly. So we're going to look at how you can customize your eMarketeer to make it more yours. We're going to look at forms and some of the hidden superpowers in forms that you may not be aware of. We're going to be looking at the editor and looking at some cool stuff you can do in the editor when you do your emails and landing pages. And then lastly, there's that freebie that we're going to look at. So those are some of the broad topics, but let's see. I'm pretty sure that your questions and challenges throughout the webinar will take us in a lot of different directions, and I'm really looking forward to that. So the first thing that we're going to dive into is customization, how to make eMarketeer more your own, how to make sure that you really control the brand experience throughout eMarketeer. And the first thing that we're going to look at is customizing the contact card in eMarketeer, because the contact card that comes out of the box there is fine. It's got a lot of standard fields there, but your business is unique and your data needs are unique. So we want to make sure that eMarketeer can house the kind of data on your contacts, on your persons that you need. So we're going to look at how you can modify the contact card to really make it fit your business and your target group. So let's have a look at the contact card and how to modify the contact card in eMarketeer. The contact card basically decides, if you will, the database that you have available in eMarketeer. So if you add more fields and more opportunities to the contact card, your eMarketeer database will be expanded to be able to house more data. So let's have a look at how we do that. So first of all, in eMarketeer, you'd want to go to the settings page, and you'll find customize eMarketeer down here. Click that, and you'll find customize the contact card. And that's the one that we're gonna look at. So this is the contact card that you get out of the box. It's got some standard fields. These can't be deleted, so they're kind of mandatory. But you can see that you can add fields to the contact card, and you can even add groups to the contact card. So a group is basically this blue box that groups together some fields, so you keep things neatly organized. So if I click the add new group, I get a dialog here that allows me to create a new group. I'm going to create a group of fields called car preferences, and that goes onto my contact card. And then here I can start adding fields to this contact card group. So for instance, I could create a field called Porsche under car preferences, and I can choose a field type, checkbox, for instance, a radio button, a drop list, and a date field. Those are the options you have there. So by choosing a text box and giving it a name, I can put that field onto my contact card here. And of course, I can add as many fields as I would like. I can move the fields around to organize my contact card to look really neat. So that's how easy it is to add more fields to your contact card so that the data you have can fit into eMarketeer. Now, either you can upload data to these fields, or you can use eMarketeer and the automations in eMarketeer to populate these fields with data, right? So just as you could capture company name and title and person name in a form, you can also capture the custom fields that you've put on your contact card via forms or via automations. And I'll show you how to go about doing that. But first, let's look at the updated contact card. So let's go back to our contact. So this is the contact card as we know it. And as I scroll down, you will see the new fields ready for your input here. So now I have a group of fields. So this is my group, car preference, and I've got my two interests there that have been dropped in. So that's really how easy it is to modify your contact card to make sure that you can house the data in eMarketeer that you would want. Now, why is this neat? It's neat because you can use these contact cards for segmentations, for list building, and you can populate data, put data on these fields using eMarketeer. So for instance, if you want to do a filter in the contact manager, you can do a filter that looks for a specific field, in this case Porsche, and it needs to be checked, and it will create a list for me that contains all the people that are interested in Porsche. And I can save this filter, and I can use this filter as when I address my email campaigns in eMarketeer. So that basically means that this filter will always be up to date with everybody who's interested in Porsche based on that field and their contact card, and I can use that as a send list in eMarketeer. So that is one way to do it. You can segment by creating filters and lists based on the fields on the contact card. Another option is to use automations, the eMarketeer marketing automations, to put data on these contact cards. So if you're in a campaign and you've done an automation, this is an automation here in a campaign, and there's an automation called update contact card. You can see that in the list of automations. I'll be happy to show you later on. Just let me know in the questions box. But this is just really the nitty-gritty details of how you do it. I can give my automation a name. I select the field on my contact card that I want to be updated. As you can see, I select Porsche, and I would like the checkbox to be checked. This means that I can also clear a value on the contact card if I leave this unchecked. Everybody that has done what triggers this automation will have the field cleared. So I tell eMarketeer, please, when someone in the welcome email clicks a specific link, in this case, link to Porsche on my website, I want to make sure that the interest code on the car preference field on the contact is updated with a check mark in Porsche. So that's how you can populate the fields or fill out the fields on the contact card based on your contact's behavior in your campaign. So how they click your emails, what they answer in your forms and stuff like that. You can use those actions, that behavior to put data onto the contact cards. All right. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if you have any questions around that. Cool. The next thing to think about when you're talking about customization is customizing the domain that eMarketeer uses for all of your marketing components. So web pages, emails, links, images, mobile apps, everything you do in eMarketeer has a domain, since everything is hosted online, right? So let's have a look at what you get out of the box. You will have eMarketeer in the domain of all of your stuff, right? So app.emarketeer.com/ a lot of gibberish here. That is gonna be your basic domain for everything you do in eMarketeer. So your images, your links, everything you put into eMarketeer to send out or publish to your target groups will have that part of the URL. But what's really cool is it's very, very easy to change this to something more for in this instance, news.avenir.com, since my company here is Avenir. So you can really hone that brand experience all the way down to the link level or the URL level to really make this appear as your stuff, because it is. So luckily, it's very easy to do. I'm going to show you in just a second, but there's even more to it when you customize the domain than just your emails and your links. If you do landing pages in eMarketeer, you will see the same thing, that the URL will have eMarketeer up here. But if you customize, not only will you get your own brand, you will also get rid of this gibberish here, and you'll have something like this instead. So we go from eMarketeer, app.eMarketeer, to your URL plus a short, neat URL for your landing page. And you get to decide what goes into the link, that part of the link there. We call that the permalink. So you get a nice URL when you customize your domain and use a permalink for your landing pages. And just let me show you how you do that. So when you're in your editor and you're editing your landing page, on the left-hand side here, you will get some new fields when you've customized your eMarketeer domain. And the important one is this one, the permalink. What you put in here is what is added after the URL, so the news.avenir.com/web and your permalink. So that's a nice URL for your landing pages, for your events and product launches and whatnot, for you to use and for you to personalize or customize rather. So very straightforward to do. Again, you just go into the accounts page in eMarketeer, you go on to the customize eMarketeer, and you go to customize domain. And here you will see you can put in the domain that you want to eMarketeer to use, and go ahead and check out the support page, because there's a little bit you need to do on your end to make sure that your domain points to the eMarketeer server where everything is housed. So it's not really technical, and I'm sure somebody, either you or someone in your team, will know what to do. Just check out the support page. It has all the details. But in eMarketeer itself, this is basically what it is you need to do. So very straightforward, and absolutely something that you should be doing to customize the brand experience there in eMarketeer. All right. There are already questions around the automations on the car preferences and how I automate those based on behavior. I will make sure to cover that, showing you how automations can update those fields. So thanks for those questions. Keep them coming. To round off the customization, I'm going to talk about SMS sender ID. If you use eMarketeer to send SMSs to your staff, to your customers, to your prospects, maybe you do events and you send out SMSs as part of text messages as part of the events communication, you want to make sure that you can personalize the SMSs and as well using sender ID. So as you can see here, SMSs sent from eMarketeer appear to be coming from Avenir, my demo company here. So I've got Avenir here on the lock screen. I've got Avenir in the text message app on my phone because I've customized the sender ID. So it's already included in your eMarketeer, so you should definitely go ahead and customize your sender ID if you are considering sending SMSs. It just looks a lot better that this comes from your brand, especially when you're on the text messages, because that's kind of a pretty personal communication channel, is right on people's phone. You want to make sure that you build the best relation you can there. So, and the way you do this is basically when you're editing an SMS. So this is the SMS editor, and you've got your SMS content. I'm personalizing the content up here. I'll look more on personalization in just a second. And what you do here is you choose your sender ID. Now, if you haven't done anything, it will just say eMarketeer here. But you can check out this link, learn more about sender ID. Here, you have the explanation of how you apply for a sender ID. Basically, you can, put in your own sender ID saying like the police or a competitor's brand name. It needs to be your brand name, your product name, something that's associated with you and your company. So we validate that, and you can put either one or more sender IDs into eMarketeer, so you get that nice brand experience with the SMSs that are coming from your brand to your recipients there. All right, some questions here from Christians. Customizing domain, is that only available in eMarketeer Pro? Yes, Christian, customization of the domains and of the contact cards, those are eMarketeer Pro features. So if you're an eMarketeer Basic user, you won't find them on the settings. I think these two will actually be, the only features that I'm showing here that are only available in the Pro. So don't go ahead thinking that all of the stuff that I'm showing here are only isolated for eMarketeer Pro, but the customization, those two are, and automations are as well, Christian. But if you are interested in learning more about what you can do in eMarketeer Pro versus eMarketeer Basic, do reach out to us, and we'll be happy to cover that. So, but just wanting to make sure that the rest of the webinar won't only be covering Pro features. So I hope that cleared out that question, Christian. Good to know that you're already looking around, browsing for opportunities, but just in this case, that will require an upgrade on your part. Okay, so that is really what I wanted to mention around customizations, making the brand experience yours. You obviously know about the logos and the colors and stuff like that you use in the eMarketeer editor to adapt your templates, but these are some of the lesser known, a little bit hidden features that really brings your brand experience all the way through. Okay, let's look at forms in eMarketeer. Forms are really the Swiss Army knife of eMarketeer. They can be used for so many different purposes, ranging from simple sign-up forms to your newsletters to big event registration forms with breakout sessions registration. They're used for product evaluations, large customer satisfaction surveys, and much, much more. So they can be very small or very big, but they're very heavily used. And I just want to make sure that you really know about some of the lesser known features there. And the first one that we're going to look at is rules on your questions in forms, because they can do some pretty neat stuff. So basically, we are in a campaign. I have a form here, an event registration form, but it could be anything really, as long as it's a form. I've got some really cool options that I can use. So I'm going to go ahead and click edit. And I'm now in the forms editor. I have all the question types over here that I can add. I have the pages where I can add more pages to my form. So if I wanted to make the form, instead of just making it a long scrollable form, I can break it into several pages, which will give me kind of a nice flow through the questionnaire. And then I've got my system pages, thank you page, confirmation page, and confirmation email. I'm pretty sure that if you've played around with the forms editor, you know about these. But let's have a closer look at the form itself and some of the things that it offers. So in this case, it's an event registration forms. So it gathers the event participant. And further down, I have a couple of questions about location, whether they're staying for dinner and drinks, and if they do so, their dietary requirements. And I can use rules to do some pretty cool stuff here. So if you mouse over a question, you will see this small toolbar pop up. You can copy and paste questions. You can move them around by dragging and dropping, as I'm sure you know. But I don't know if you've checked out the rules box over here. When you click rules, you get some settings for this specific question. For instance, I get to do some settings on the two cities here, Copenhagen and Oslo. So let's say that this event, I have a limitation on how many people can join in these two cities. I have 80 seats in Copenhagen and 120 seats in Oslo, for instance. And I want to make sure that I don't overbook my event. So on the settings for each question, I have a disable option and I can give a number of answers. By telling eMarketeer to disable this option after 80 answers on the Copenhagen question, I make sure that I don't get more than 80 registrations for that specific city. And then for Oslo, I could do another disabled setting there, like 120, if that is my maximum number of participants there, and I'm good to go. Saving this will make sure that I don't overbook my event. So that is pretty neat. The next one has to do, also uses rules, but it uses rules to show or hide content in your form. So for instance, if you're asking people, are you staying for dinner and drinks, and they ask no, there's hardly a need for you to ask about dietary requirements. As a matter of fact, the shorter and neater you keep your form, the more people will respond and fill out your form. So a long form with a lot of information you don't need will absolutely hurt your conversion rate, the number of people who will respond to your form. So make sure that you dynamically show or hide content in your form that you do not need. So in this case, I want to use a rule, and I want to use a display rule, which is the top one here. And normally the display rule is to always show a question, which is logical, I guess. You put the question into your form because you want it answered. But in some cases, you only want it answered under specific conditions. In this case, I only want to show this question when they've answered yes to are you staying for dinner and drinks. Okay, so that makes sense. If they answer yes to are you staying for dinner and drinks, I want to make sure that this question is being shown. If they answer no to are you staying for dinner and drinks, then why should I bother showing this question? So that is how easy it is to dynamically show and hide form content. You can do this with questions, you can do this with images, you can do this with text boxes. So depending on what people answer, you can show and hide stuff in your forms. That's pretty smart. You'll see when you've added rules, a limitation rule like this one, you'll see a blue pin in your form, and the green pin will show you that there's a display rule on your question. Now, obviously, these pins will only be shown in the editor. You won't see them when the form is live, because that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to the visitor. So let's go ahead and check out how the form would look from the user end. So we're going to publish the form and have a look at the form. Here it is in all its glory. You will see the registration here, and you will see at this point Copenhagen is already sold out. So now the form respondent can't click Copenhagen. It's simply disabled. And then, are you staying for dinner and drinks? Yes or no? And if they answer yes, the dietary requirements question will pop up. So that's an easy way to show and hide content in your questions, and a nice way to control how many people can sign up for a specific event or for a specific answer type. It could obviously be other things than an event, but just to give you an idea of how it's used. Now, a cousin to showing and hiding stuff is skipping. Skipping pages, skipping questions in forms can be used in many different ways, but basically it means that all contents, all pages in your forms doesn't need to be shown. Now, if we continue on this example, I have my event registration, and I could sign up for Copenhagen or Oslo. That's my page 1. Then on page 2 of my form, I have a lot more in-depth information about the Copenhagen event. Maybe I even have which specific sessions you can sign up for during the Copenhagen event. And on page 3, I have the same stuff, but for the Oslo event. Now, obviously, I wouldn't have the visitor going through page 1, page 2, page 3, because nobody would be going to both events. And then at the end, I would like to have them end up on the same thank you page. So by using skipping in my form, I can make sure that the visitor is going on the right journey here through my form. So if you sign up for the Copenhagen event, you should see page 1 and page 2, but skip page 3. And if they sign up for Oslo, obviously they should see page 1, skip page 2, go to page 3, and then on to the thank you page. All right. So let's try to put that logic into my form using skipping. So we're back in my form, and as you can see, I have 3 pages now. I have the registration page, and I have page 2 and page 3. Page 2, the Copenhagen event, page 3, the Oslo event, and page 4 would be my thank you page. All right. So the first thing I do is, okay, if people sign up for Copenhagen, they should see the Copenhagen event page, but obviously they should skip page 3. So what I do there is they end up on the Copenhagen page, and I can actually edit the button here to make that do something. So if I click the button in the editor, I get button properties. I can change the text of the button, and I can also decide what should happen when people click this button. And in this case, I would like people to go straight to the thank you page, which means obviously they will skip page 3, which has the Oslo information. So that's how easy it is to skip a page, simply not show page 3, but go straight to the thank you page. Now I'll tell eMarketeer how to skip page 2 if they sign up for the Oslo event. So back on my first page here, I have rules on the location, as you have seen before. And I'm gonna use the settings on the Oslo question here, and I'm gonna say if they answer Oslo, I want you to skip to page 3, right? So they won't see page 2, which is the Copenhagen page. They will only see page 3, which is the Oslo page, and then after that, they will just go to the thank you page. So now I have my logic in place that makes sure that when you answer specific things, you can skip to a specific point in your form, making sure that you don't show irrelevant content to the people who are signing your forms. Okay, let's see. Let's continue on here. The next thing around forms is what I call a booth form or a self-loading form. I don't really have the right word for it. Maybe if you've got a good suggestion, let me know in the questions box. But the thing here is, sometimes you would like the same form to be used over and over and over again without having the people filling out the forms to do anything specific. For instance, if you're on a trade show and you have an iPad or a tablet there that captures inputs from the visitors, you would like the form to reload every time it's been submitted and do that in an easy way. There are different ways of doing it. I'm going to show you a really quick one. So again, we're in eMarketeer here, and I've got my iPad form here. The first thing I will do is I will grab the link to this form, which I'll use in just a second. So I will need the link to this form. So I'm going to go to publish, and you can see here I've got some different options, and I'm going for the direct URL. So what this gives me is the form URL. So I'm just going to copy that and keep it on my clipboard. And then I'm gonna go back into my form, edit it, and then I'm gonna use the thank you page down here. Now, normally the thank you page shows you something like this. Thank you, your answers have been saved, and obviously you can go ahead and modify that. But that's a static page that your form normally will end up on once it's been submitted. But I want the form to reload to be ready for a new input from a new visitor. So I'm going to go to the custom URL part up here and paste in my form URL, right? So what I'm telling eMarketeer here is don't go to the thank you page, but use this URL instead. And then when I click update, you'll see that the form loads in the preview window. So that means that when your form has been submitted, it will simply reload and it will be ready for the next registration here. Now there are more, you can do more stuff here. You can add in code on the thank you page to make it wait a few seconds and reload again and do different things. And that's all fine. You can reach out to us and we can go more into depth about that. But this is a very quick way to get to that self-loading form that I was talking about. So what would happen? You would go to the tablet there, you would fill out contact details, all is nice and clear. And when you submit the form, it simply reloads and is ready for the next input. Good for point of sales, good for hotel reception, booth, wherever you're picking up form submissions on a tablet there. Okay, let me see if there are any questions around forms. Here's a question from Jern. Can a hidden question be mandatory and not be a problem if they're not going to stay for dinner? That's a good question, Jern. I'll actually have to test on that, but I'm pretty sure that a mandatory question that you hide won't be a problem as long as it stays hidden. But I'll have to do a little bit of testing there, so it's worthwhile to just test that. So let's go ahead and do some more testing on that one. There's another question: if the hidden questions are shown in the confirmation emails and on the confirmation pages, there's actually a setting on the confirmation pages. Just let me go to eMarketeer real quick and have a look at the form. Event registration was the form that we used before, and I'll show you what I mean. So when you're editing the form, what we don't want to have happen is that our hidden content, the content that we haven't shown, is being shown when people see the confirmation page. But if you go to the confirmation page, you will see that there are some settings up here, namely hide skipped questions. That one. That's the one that you want to say yes, hide skipped questions. That also affects the confirmation email, by the way, so you won't see the skipped questions on the confirmation page and on the confirmation email. So that's pretty nice to be able to do that. So if you do hide and show dynamically the content on the forms page, you want to make sure to do that. All right, let's plow on. The next thing you can do with forms has to do with tracking the traffic to your forms. Now, if you do an event sign up or ebook download or a webinar registration form, you're probably wondering how you best drive traffic to that form. So you take the form URL, you put it on LinkedIn, you put it on Facebook, maybe you do Google Ads and target the form to get people to sign up. Maybe you give the form URL to your sales team so that they can spread the form URL through their networks and emails and whatnot. So you have this form URL floating around, but how do you keep track of which channel, which network, which people are best at generating traffic and conversions to your form? Now, one thing you could do is for each target group, if you will, for each salesperson, for each social media channel, you could create individual forms and publish those on those different places, which will meet goal A of being able to track where traffic comes from. But then you've got these form answers scattered around in different forms, which isn't really what you want and isn't the way to work smarter in eMarketeer. So we want to create just one form, and we want to be able to track where traffic comes from to that form so that we are smart in our data analysis afterwards there. Okay, so let's go into the forms report here. And this is where we will see the results. First, I will grab the form URL because that is what you're going to be editing to meet your needs. So again, we go to the publish form, we go to the URL as we did before, and we copy the URL. And now I just want to split the URL apart so we can see what it consists of. So here's your form URL. It will have app.emarketeer.com or whatever you have customized it with. Then you will have some gibberish afterwards. And this is where you can start to be smart. So the first part there is just the URL. not much to do about that. If you have it customized, fine, you're good to go. Then you have a long ID. This is basically the link telling eMarketeer which form to show and submit. But then you have that last bit there, origin equals direct. This is yours to use. So you can go ahead and change the tracker name, origin, or the variable direct to suit your needs. So maybe you want origin to be social media or Google Ads or sales or whatever. The thing is, you can put whatever you would like into the tracker, so you can give the tracker a name and you can put the different variables in here. So origin works for me right now, so I can create the same URL here, but with the variation of origin equals social media, origin equals Google Ads, or origin equals sales, which will help me show in the report how many form submissions these different origins gave me. So just by changing the last part of the URL there will give eMarketeer the ability to track the traffic to that, to those form submissions. So again, if we go back to the forms report, you've got your dashboard, your form results, you've got traffic all the way over here. And if you click traffic, you go into the traffic report for the form that contains the trackers and the variables. So over here, you will see direct, sales, and Google Ads. So these are three different links to the same form. One had origin equals direct, origin equals sales, origin equals Google Ads. And I can see the number of form answers these different URLs has given me. So they're all captured in the same form, which means I can reuse the automations. I can just do one form to cater to all these different needs, but I have tabs on who's generated the signups. So if I wanted a report to sales saying these are the leads that you generated from this specific campaign, I can click the number 3 here and see the exact people that signed up on the form through that URL. So some use cases could be which social media channels generated more traffic, which sales rep generated more leads, or which site or campaign generates most conversions for that specific form. So for instance, the webinar form that you filled out today, maybe you saw that on our website, maybe you've seen it inside eMarketeer in the chatbot there, maybe you've seen it in some of our mails, maybe you've seen it on social media. It's all the same form, but we track the source of the signups by using those variables on the URLs. All right. Let's see. Here's a question from Morten. Can you use this for not only reload, but an other landing page? Maybe I'll ask you to give me a bit more details there, Morten, what you mean. But as this is what you mean. I've used the URL and I paste the URL and the form's open in my browser. But sometimes you capture the form, you grab the form code and you embed the form into your website, either using form code and iframe or an iframe. And I know for a fact that the iframe also has the source element in it, or the origin element, so you can let the form know which page the submission came from. So if that's what you mean, Morten, yes, it is possible to do it on forms you embed on your landing pages and on your website as well. For what other purposes is a question from Joska? For what other purposes can this be used? Just for location of the form answer, or are there other uses for this function? Well, basically, you decide what goes into the tracker and the variable. So depending on the needs you have for tracking who clicked the link or where the link was clicked, you can use those. You can also combine them. So maybe you have one tracker that's called sales, and you can add another tracker onto the URL that has the sales rep's name. So then you can track the sales team and all the way down to the individual salespeople that help you spread the link to their network. I'll try to come up with more ways to use this than the 3 I've mentioned here, Joska. Right now, I can't really think of other purposes, but in a nutshell, you decide what goes into the origin, to the tracker and to the variable. So if you have a neat way of saying, I would like to know whether this form has been submitted via this link or via this link, you can certainly do so. Actually, maybe let's do just a quick idea here. Maybe you're doing an email where you ask people, what do you think of our meeting? Was it good or bad, right? Just very quick answer. I could use the same URL and the one with the thumbs up image, maybe. I could put in satisfaction equals high, and the link with the thumbs down, I could put satisfaction equals low. And then they click the link, they go onto the form pre-populates with their content, and they just hit submit, right? They don't need to do anything else, but the traffic report will show me whom have submitted the form from the positive and from the negative link. I don't know if that covers what you're asking, Joski, but it was just an idea that sprang to mind here. Let me know if you have other creative ideas of using it. And if there are other people on the webinar already using this kind of link building for your traffic reports, let us know what kind of value it provides you, and we can share it in the Q&A session at the end. All right, I'm going to leave forms for now and go on to editing. Editing is obviously a huge part of what you do with eMarketeer. You build campaigns, newsletters, emails, landing pages, and so on. So you're going to spend a lot of time in the editor, and there's just a lot of stuff you can do there. And I just want to touch upon a few of the cool features that you may not know about. So we're in the editor. Of course, here you know how to add content over here. You know you can change the colors of every little component in the email by going to the colors and fonts. That may seem a little bit overwhelming at times if you go to this one, because it will bring up the entire style sheet of the whole email. What you may not know is that you've got a styles tab on each block over here as well. If you click the styles tab over here, you will just get the styling element of the specific block that you have selected. So if I double click this block, the styles here, the colors and the fonts and the sizes will only be for this block and the blocks like it, right? So instead of getting the entire style sheet, I can go to a subset of the style sheets by clicking at styles over here. I don't think too many people know about that. All right, so let's have a look at the first thing you can do. And I've called the headline here, things that aren't there, which is maybe a bit of a quirky headline, but here's what I mean. Some of the things that you're not seeing are actually really, really powerful. For instance, pre-headers. Pre-headers are small bits of text that are hidden most of the time, but are visible in really important times. So a pre-header is the short text you see when you preview an email on your mobile phone, or when you preview an email on your email client. So you're in Outlook or in MacMail or whatever, and you see the sender, the subject line, and the first little bit of text from the email, and then you've got your email preview, right? But the pre-header is the stuff that goes in here. In many, many cases, you'll see pre-headers like this: can't view the email, which is really an odd message to show here. But what it does, the email client, in this case a phone, simply grabs the first text it meets in the email and puts that into the preview window, right? So if you're smart about this, you can use a pre-header that plays nicely together with your subject line to make sure that you get higher open rates, or at least increase the chance of being read later, instead of just being swiped and deleted in a millisecond from the inbox there. So by using pre-headers, you can make sure that your sender name and the subject line here, plus your pre-header, really increases your chances of being opened or being kept in the inbox, right? So you want to be this guy and not this guy. Who wants to have can't view in the email in the pre-header? It's too important a real estate to just throw away on random text. So just let me show you how you do the pre-header in the eMarketeer. So let's go into an email. I'm going to go back here to my campaign and find an email and show you how you do the pre-header. And you may wonder, I don't want to put some random text inside my email that just is shown in a few seconds on a mobile phone. But that's what I mean by things that aren't there. So in the editor, here we are. I'm going to zoom in a little bit to make things a little bit more clear. You'll see a text up here that says pre-header. If there's no pre-header in your email or in the template that you're using, simply click the plus sign, scroll all the way to the bottom, and you'll find pre-header. Just add that block and drag it all the way to the top. The neat thing about the pre-header is that the pre-header is shown in the editor, otherwise it will be difficult to edit it, but it's not shown when the email is actually read. So when the email is opened in an email client or read on web, the pre-header will disappear, and it will only show on the mobile phone in the preview window. So that's pretty cool. So for instance, if I grab the share work in progress, so I'm just going to grab the URL for the email here and paste it into my browser, you will see the pre-header is not there. So this goes under the things that aren't there headline. So it's not there when you read the email. It's only there when you preview it on the mobile phone or in your email client, and you can see it in the editor as well. So make sure you use pre-headers to maximize your chances of getting your email opened, or at least kept in the inbox instead of deleted it. It really helps your open rates by making these two play together. And of course, as with any text in eMarketeer, you can personalize with names and company names and whatever you have on the contact card. You can put that into the pre-header text as well, which is really, really nice. Otto asks if this is being recorded. Absolutely, Otto. It's being recorded, and you'll get a recording and the slides after the webinar. So don't worry if you are missing something. Here's a question from Carl. What's the best way to add an attachment to an email? Upload the file and link to it? Absolutely. That is the way. You're answering your own question there. The best way to add an attachment in eMarketeer is upload the file to the files library and then link to the file. Now, there are a few reasons why that's a good idea. First off, it keeps your email footprint low. It's easy for your recipients to get the email without too many attachments, and it's not heavy. The other thing is, if you link to it, you can track who's clicking your attachments, right? So if you attach an email, by the way, you can't do that in eMarketeer, but if you do that, you will in your normal Outlook and send the email, you won't know who's engaged with your attachment. If you're linked to the file instead, eMarketeer can tell you exactly who's clicked the link. So let's say that I, on this button here, add a link to a brochure for a family car, and I add another button and link to a brochure for a sports car. I can track who downloaded the family car brochure and who downloaded the sports car brochure. And that can be used for segmentation, updating their contact card with their interest codes, and so on. So that's the way you want to do it, Carl. Link and attach. Then there's another question about attachments, about formats. How to format it? Well, I guess the best way to put an attachment would be as a PDF. So if you have a Word document or something that's beautifully done in Illustrator, whatever, or a presentation, make it a PDF, because you are always in control how the attachment looks if you put it into a PDF. It can't be edited, and you're sure that the layout stays intact throughout. So that would be my recommendation, to PDF the files that you link to, Carl. I hope that answered your question. Here's a question from Malina. When you're receiving the email, the read on web or the text after the pre-header also is included in the preview. How to avoid that? Well, first of all, if you use a pre-header, you want to make sure that the pre-header is at the very top of your email, right? Because remember, the preview window will pick up the first text that it meets, and if that is read on web, well, we're no better off than we were before. So make sure that your pre-header is way up top in your email, and remember that it disappears when the email is actually opened in the email client. So that's number one, pre-header all the way to the top. The next thing, and this is not really a cut and stone answer, is the length of your pre-header. Now, if I only do a couple of words in my pre-header, there will be more room available in the preview window on the mobile phone. So read on web will maybe sneak into my pre-header as well. So I want to find a length of a pre-header that's long enough that I feel confident that the text I have down here is pushed out of the preview window and not too long so it doesn't make sense. Now, I would love to give you a specific answer. 77 characters is absolutely the correct one, but I can't because it really depends on which phones are they being watched on, which emails clients are they being opened on, how wide is the preview window on the specific screen of your recipient. I think my colleague Josie did some research on this. I actually think we have a blog post on our website around subject lines. So if you go to eMarketeer.com/ and go to our blog and search for subject lines, there's a blog post about this, and I think the recommendations there were that around between 90 to 100 characters seems to be a good number with regards to your pre-header length. But do a bit of testing, see what works on your phone, on your colleague's phone, on your email client, and see what works for you. There's no clear-cut answer there. It really depends on where your readers are looking at the email. So yeah, I'd love to be able to give you a better answer there, Marlene, but that's just the way it is. So yeah, subject line, successful subject line. This post and email has some details about the pre-header as well. So go ahead and check that out on our site. All right, a lot of questions. Good, keep them coming. This is really useful. I hope for you guys to be inspired by the questions that are coming through as well. Okay, so the next thing about things that aren't there that you can do in the editor are about adaptive and responsive content and adaptive and responsive design. Now, responsive design, we've heard about this over and over and over. It means that your email, for instance, or your landing page is responsive to the responds to the device that it's being viewed on, which means that it adapts, and certainly we do that as well. But adaptive design actually means that the content itself changes depending on where you view the email. So responsive design means that if I view this on a mobile phone, I make sure that the images are sized correctly, the text is a little bit larger, the buttons go all the way across, 2 columns become 1 column, eMarketeer controls all of that. So you're good right out of the box there with regards to being having responsive design. But what you may not know is that you can also tell eMarketeer how to prioritize, if you will, your content if it's being viewed on a mobile phone. Let's say that my email newsletter here, this article, I will only like to show if people open up the email on my mobile on their desktop, not on their mobile phone. You know, again, on your mobile phone, you have a limited time span where people are looking through your email. You want to make sure that what they see is absolute top content there, and that may mean sacrificing some of your articles when they look at the email on a mobile phone. So on the content blocks of the email, you have a display option up here that says hide, block, or show block on mobile device. So if I choose to hide this block on a mobile device, when I go into the mobile preview, that block disappears. Now, obviously, if they open the email later that day on their desktop, the block will appear again. So this is an easy way for you to control which content is being is viewable on a mobile device versus on a large screen. Good for being not only in responsive design, but also adaptive design. So you adapt to your target group and the device that they're looking at. All right, let's plow on here. Then we have personalization. You may be aware, I hope you are, that you can personalize all of the content in eMarketeer with the stuff that you have on your contact cards, like first name, company name, maybe interest codes and whatnot. That can all be merged into the content of your emails. But what you may not have seen is that you can also use a fallback value. And a fallback value means that typically you don't have 100% perfect data on everybody in your database, right? So for instance, if I wanted to start this email with hi first name, that sucks if I don't have first names on everybody on my contact list. But because then it will just say hi, comma, which looks a bit odd. But using a fallback value, I can put in something like hi there, which means that if first name is there on the contact card, so it can say hi Klaus, but if my first name field is empty on my contact name, it will say hi there, or dear customer, or dear Klaus, right? So it will make sense to use personalization even though you don't have contact details on all of your recipients. So for instance, dear customer, I could put that in here. So it will say dear Klaus if my name is already in the database, or it will say dear customer if that name is blank. So even though you only have 70% perfect data on your contact database, why not make sure you can use that? And then for remaining 30% where you don't have their first name, it will say dear customer, and it still make perfect sense. So think about how you can use fallback, the fallback value here, to maximize the use of personalization in your emails. All right. Here's a problem around template, a question around template design. Is it possible to style the content boxes in the newsletter, for instance, using rounded corners instead of pointed corners, and also possible to change the width of the newsletter? This template can be completely modified, Stine, to whatever need you have, right? This is HTML, basically, with a lot of neat tricks on top. So everything you would be able to do in HTML, pretty much, you will be able to do here. So if you have specific requirements for your corners or shadows or whatever it is in your email design, let us know. Contact either your eMarketeer partner or support@eMarketeer.com, and we can help you out designing or getting those design tweaks into your email designs. You're not limited to the templates we have. They can be modified completely, and should be, if your brand design guidelines really have some specific ways that you want to have things look. So absolutely, Stine, it is possible. All right. I'm going to plow through a lot of questions coming through, but I see we're also already over time, so I want to make sure that I get through the last couple of things here. The last thing I want to show you in the editor is around, sorry, spoiled my freebie there, is around the image editor that we have built into to eMarketeer, and some of the stuff that you can do there. Now, if you're a Photoshop or Illustrator expert, that's fine, but maybe you, like me, would like something that's a bit quicker and a bit easier to work with. So I'm just going to show you a couple of tricks that you may not be aware of that you can do with the built-in image editor. And again, under the headline of things that aren't there, I'm going to look at transparency. So I'm going to add just a new column here for an image and some text, and drop in a picture into that block to edit with the built-in image editor. So I'm double-clicking here, choosing an image, and finding an image I can use for this purpose. I'm gonna grab this one. Okay, so here's my image. Fine, I can resize it for a perfect fit, but maybe my email design or my brand guidelines around images with persons tells me that this needs to be round, right? So I could go to Illustrator and do the crop and do transparency and all that stuff, but I can even do it inside eMarketeer here. I'm just gonna highlight this by making the background a different color here. So I'm gonna edit this picture with the built-in image editor, and just open up the image here and do the quick tweaks here that will help me get transparency for rounded corners on my images, or any other shape really that I want to have on my images. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a crop, and I'm gonna do a squared crop to make sure that when I do a round image, it will make sense with the stuff that I have here. So I'm gonna do this. Now it's a nice square. Then I'm gonna use the frames, and I'm gonna use the rounded corner feature down here and do a corner radius that is completely round, add transparency, And there we go. Now, it may look a little bit odd here in the editor. The checker boxes here really means that it is transparent. So when I bring the image back into eMarketeer for a snug fit into my template, I now have a round image where the background color spills through. So now it's transparent. So that's a very quick way to create a transparent effect. You can also do cutout shapes, put the image all the way in the corner and do it round there. Obviously, you can do it round that way as well. So there's tons of different ways you can use cutouts and transparencies to make your images sit nicely on the background there. All right, so I'm gonna save you questions for the Q&A sessions, and I wanna make sure that I mention the last thing here that I'm not sure everybody knows is the Google Analytics integration, and also time for the little freebie that I promised. So basically, eMarketeer integrates with Google Analytics, and it's silly simple to do. In eMarketeer, to really turn on the integration, you go to settings, you go to the plugins and integrations, you go to Google Analytics, and there you simply turn on the integration and put in the domain that you want to track. Now, eMarketeer does a ton of stuff now that you don't have to think about or worry about at all, which really helps your reporting capabilities in Google Analytics. So if you use Google Analytics to track traffic on your website, this is something that you definitely want to do. So have a look at what it says here and check out the settings page there. And here's what it does. So basically, it adds UTM parameters to all links in eMarketeer. Now, what the heck does that mean? This is kind of now I've told you, and then you can happily forget it for the rest of your life. UTM, our urgent tracking module, is something that Google acquired a couple of years ago. And it makes Google understand your links. So where is traffic coming from? And the neat thing is eMarketeer generates this automatically. So as long as you switch on the integration, you don't have to worry about anything else. Now, your links will all of a sudden be longer. So the links from your emails, your SMSs, and your landing pages to your website will be longer, but it will be for a purpose. So if we look at a link that has the Google Analytics switched on, it says avenir.com/car/Porsche, and then a lot of stuff here. And let's break this down real quick. So the green part there, that's basically what I put into eMarketeer. That's the link. When people click, they should end up on Porsche on my website. That's all I do. And then eMarketeer adds all of this. It adds source, eMarketeer.com. This tells Google Analytics that the traffic that's coming here is coming from eMarketeer.com. So, or the campaigns you build in eMarketeer. Then it adds medium equals email. It shows that this component was an email. It could also be an SMS or a landing page or whatever you're building in eMarketeer, but it tells Google Analytics the traffic that's coming to you via this link came from an email. Then it adds content. This is the title of your email. So this link could be in a newsletter that Avenir sent out, and the name of the newsletter in eMarketeer would be newsletter 10. And then it shows campaign. It shows the campaign name in eMarketeer. So basically, the integration here picks apart where this thing is coming from and tells Google Analytics all about it, right? So it tells Google Analytics, okay, the person who clicked this link and is now on the Porsche page on your website came from a newsletter. The newsletter was called Newsletter 10, and it was in the campaign newsletters. And it does all of this automatically behind the scenes. So, and the freebie here is that I'm gonna include a link to a marketing dashboard that you can add easily to your Google Analytics account. And this dashboard will take all of these UTM and put them into a neat dashboard that will tell you something about your email marketing performance. It will tell you how many people visited your website through your email campaigns. It will tell you which campaigns were most successful in generating traffic. It will tell you which content on your website your email readers are most interested in, and a lot more. Compare emails to social media and adverts as traffic sources, and much, much more. So just by clicking onto that integration and naming your emails and naming your campaigns just as you would normally, you tell Google Analytics a whole lot about the traffic that your email campaigns and newsletters are driving through your sites. So absolutely something to do, and I'll make sure to include the link to the free dashboard in the follow-up emails to this webinar. So just click that link, and Google Analytics will ask you to add this dashboard to your custom dashboards in Google Analytics. Very easy to do. All right. We're 10 minutes past the hour. I can't believe how many questions are coming through still. I hope you're still there. Enjoy the recording if you have to go. I'll just highlight that we have another webinar this afternoon, actually, if you haven't seen it, that are all about SuperOffice and the tips and tricks you can do in SuperOffice with the eMarketeer. So not the stuff we've seen today, this morning, but more targeted SuperOffice and some of the stuff you can do there. And keep an eye out, by the way, for the eMarketeer.com/webinar page, and your inbox will be filling the pipeline with more webinars coming your way. Okay, so I will start plowing through the rest of the questions here. If you have to go, I totally understand. We're past the hour. Thank you so much for joining. If you're curious and still have questions, do hang around. I will go through the stuff here. Here is a question from Joska. Great option about the fallback value. How does this look when I have two personalizations or fallback? For instance, if I have salutation plus last name or a fallback. You can absolutely use more personalization fields, Joska, and use fallback value. So just go through the different scenarios. What would it look like if I don't have a last name, but I put the salutation in front? You want to make sure that you have something that makes sense there. So when you combine the different options of having a name but not having a salutation, and having a salutation and not having a name, that those things make sense. So just try to play through those scenarios in your head, and you can absolutely put more things together there. You could even go really geeky and use something that's called dynamic content library that can look at fields, and if they're empty, they can do some if then else statements there. I'll include a link in the follow-up email to the article on that, or reach out to your consultant or a support team. Let's see. Please include the Q&A in the recording. Absolutely, I will do that, Maria. Annika says, great tips and tricks. Thank you. Need to leave. Thank you for being here, Annika. Let's see. Joska asks, we still use SuperOffice 7.5 on premise. Is the webinar this afternoon still relevant for me? Yes, it is, Joska. If you use SuperOffice, I think it's definitely going to be relevant. A lot of the features we're going to look at are still relevant for 7.5. As long as you can use web panels in 7.5, and you can, then a lot of this stuff will be relevant for you. So stick around for that if you want to. I promised a follow-up on the how to update the interest code with an automation. That's way back, so if you don't recall what I'm talking about, my apologies for waiting so long to answer that question, Malene, but let's have a look at what this is all about. So basically, you'll remember that I had, I'm just going to put in a link here so it makes sense when we look at the automation. So I'm going to click here and call this link Porsche, and link to like that. Okay, so this is a link in my email. It links to a specific product, and I would like to update the contact card with this preference whenever they click that link. That was what I talked about earlier, and here's the details of how you actually go about doing that. So you'll remember that I created a contact card field that was car preference Porsche, and now I would like that field to update it every time somebody clicks that button. I'll do that through an automation, and here are all the automations I can do in eMarketeer, and I have one here that's called Update Contact Card. And using this, I can tell eMarketeer what I want to do. So I would like to select the field on my contact card. I have the fields I can update here, Porsche. I would like Porsche to be checked when they, in the newsletter, click a specific link, and then it shows me the links in my newsletter, and I've got Porsche. So that's how I do it. I add an automation I tell eMarketeer, when someone does this, please update the value on the contact card with this check mark. That's all there is to it. That's how you use automations to update the preference codes or the fields on your contact card. I hope that makes sense, Malene, and you find it useful. Let's see if we have more questions on the questions about afternoon's webinar. Christopher asks, can you please include me on this webinar this afternoon? Please go ahead and sign up on our website, Christian, eMarketeer.com/webinars. You will see the cool hacks for SuperOffice and eMarketeer, and you'll get your unique link there. I'll make sure to include that in the follow-up email as well. Let's see, more questions coming through. So many questions out there. This is really cool. I hope that this kind of cross-fertilizes. So if you don't have questions, you'll still see questions from other people that are interesting to you. Judging by the number of folks that are still on the line after 1 hour and 15 minutes, it sounds like that is the case. Really, really cool. So if you have more questions, let me know. Thank you. A lot of people are actually absolutely going to join this afternoon as well. This is super nice. We've got some more questions around mobile apps as well. I'm not going to cover mobile apps, just letting you know that you can do mobile apps in eMarketeer as well. Actually, we are just about to release a new mobile app template that focuses on the coronavirus. We have a lot of questions about how to best communicate during these difficult times to staff, and we're actually going to add a mobile app that is specifically done for this. It's called Corona Information App. I'm going to cover this in a future webinar, hopefully already this week, so keep eyes out for an invitation to that. A mobile events app you can send to your staff that you can continuously update with information about, HR policies, health policies, and whatnot, information about your company and how it deals with the Corona situation to your staff. So there's going to be a webinar focusing on that, and if it's interesting to you, we're going to do a whole webinar on how to build mobile apps for your target groups, be it staff or customers. So let me know in the webinar evaluation if that's something that you're up to. We can definitely do that. All right, there are no more questions coming through now. Thank you so much for your time today and all of your questions. Stay tuned on the eMarketeer.com/webinars page, and let me know if there are any things that you would like to see in upcoming webinars. I would be thrilled to host more of these to get as much inspiration to you guys as at all possible. Thank you so much for your time today. Hope to seeing you at an upcoming webinar. Stay safe, and if you are as lucky as I am and it's really, really sunny outside where you are, now would be a good time for a brisk walk, I guess, to get some fresh air and digest some of all the ideas today. So thank you so much, guys. See you at our next webinar. Bye-bye.